The previous class we were discussing about extreme programming, isn't it? Yeah, tell me what you understood from extreme programming? Hello? Anyone? Tell me, students, what you understood from extreme programming? Hello? Hello, students? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yeah, tell me what you understood from extreme programming. Anyone in your class? Tell me what you understood from extreme programming. Extreme programming is a agile methodology. It's a popularly used agile technique to develop software in terms of iterations, and there we give more importance to people rather than the process, and it follows test first development. That means even the test cases can be developed before the source code is ready. So that means you can engage the testing team, so which was not possible with earlier approach of waterfall model. Then you can release the working software very quickly. Then here, and they follow pair programming. That means one task will be assigned to one pair. People will work in pairs, and it is collective ownership of the of the source code. There is nothing like single owner for a particular code snippet. So each code will be written and reviewed by a pair of developers. So therefore, the ownership is collective ownership. So those are some of the principles of extreme programming. Then, how to collect the requirements? In case of extreme programming, the requirements are collected in terms of stories. Stories are also called as user scenarios. Okay, look at here. This is one example for a story. This is also called as user scenario. When the client gives you the requirement, it will be written in terms of points. Each point will be later converted into a task. Look at here. These are the tasks. See, later I am going to give you one assignment. Like you have to write the story like this in terms of points. Then you have to convert them into task card like this. Task 1, task 2, task 3. Now these task cards are used as the basis to estimate how much time is required to implement. That is duration of the first iteration. Then cost estimation. Cost estimation and duration will be calculated based upon the number of tasks and the complexity in implementing those tasks. So that much you need to understand from extreme programming, students. Then apart from that, code refactoring. Code refactoring is nothing but code optimization. When the code is optimized, it becomes easy for maintaining the code, and hence you can add later new code to it. Code is easily modifiable when it is maintained properly. That is when it is optimized time to time. Then look at here examples of refactoring. Reorganization of class hierarchy to remove duplicate code. This is one of the example. Say for example, you have released the first version of the software. During the second version of the development, the client has given new requirements. As part of that, you are reorganizing the class hierarchy to remove duplicate code. So that is one example. Then tidying up and renaming attributes and methods to make them easier to understand. See, sometimes we give some like method 1, method 2, something like that. Instead of that, you have to give user defined names. That means the names which will tell what is the functionality of your function. Say for example, compute underscore salary. So that is very much meaningful. Instead of calling it as just compute. So if you give the method name as compute, what to compute? it is like some, still there exists some confusion. Instead of that, if you give compute underscore salary, so that makes lot of sense. So that is also part of code refactoring. Then the replacement of inline code with calls to methods that have been in. Say then wherever there are inline codes, inline method, so such things can be replaced with normal methods. So that is one thing that they are suggesting. Then test first development. Test first development means, see, just when you have the user story and the task cuts, so that much is necessary, or that much is good enough for the testers to prepare the test cases. So that approach is called as test first development. At the same time, there are also automation tools which are used for unit testing to generate unit test cases and to perform the test. They are called as automated test harnesses, are used to run all component tests each time that a new release is built. See, automated test harnesses are nothing but supported tools, testing supported tools which are used for automation. So like creating the test cases, loading them, executing them, and preparing the test report. So that complete thing can be done by using test harnesses. The meaning of test harnesses is the tools supported for performing testing. They are called as test harnesses. Look at here. Here they have given sample test card. See, this is called as a test card. That means whatever the terminology now we are used, we have used the terminology story or scenario. That is one and the same to document the requirements. Then to convert them into requirements, functional requirements, we use task card, isn't it? After task card, we develop the code using the task card as the basis. The developers will develop the code. After that, it has to be tested. So for that, the procedure will be documented by using the test cards. Look at here. To check the dose, that is dose checking, input is a number in milligram representing a single dose of the drug, then a number representing the number of single doses per day. So that is fed as the input. Then so there will be a GUI. For that GUI, these two inputs have to be fed. Then what is the procedure? Test for inputs where the single dose is correct but frequency is too high. Then test for inputs where the single dose is too high and too low. So depending upon these test constraints, you have to give the input by varying the values of input 1 and input 2. Similarly, test for inputs where single dose frequency is in permitted range. Then output OK or error message indicating that the dose is outside the safe range. That means if the dose is within the range, display OK message, or else display some error message. So this is called as a test card. In agile methodology, these things are very, very important. How to write the scenario, how to write the task card, then how to write the test card. Keep this in your mind. If you have any doubts, let me know. Anything you want to ask, students? Hello? Any doubts? Say, for example, you want to check the login page, which contains two fields, that is username, password, then OK button. Okay. Then the name of the test card becomes login check, then input valid username, then the second input valid password. Then tests, how to perform tests. See, test 1, don't enter any data, click on OK. So that is first test case. Then second test case, enter username, then keep password blank. Then third test case, keep username blank, enter password. Then fourth test case, enter both username and password as invalid values. Then next test case, enter both username and password as valid numbers. That means enter valid username and valid password, then click on OK. Okay, now then output is display appropriate message depending upon the input. So it should display a login, the welcome page, or it should display error message. So like that you can devise the test case. So you should check for all the possibilities. Since it is the login page, you should check for all the possibilities. See, what happens many a times, hackers will create similar web page. Say for example, you don't know what is the, say for example, you are having an account in, let's say for example, Canara Bank. So you don't know what is the URL of that Canara Bank, but you want to visit the web page. You will go to Google and you will type Canara Bank. In that, so many links will come. Okay, then let us assume you will click upon one of the link which is not the legitimate web page, which is created by the hacker. So the look and feel of the web page will be same. Okay, same as the actual Canara Bank. Then there will be something called as login. So you will click upon that. Then in the first attempt itself, you will enter valid name and valid username and valid password. Then you will click on OK, but nothing will open. Okay, it will keep rotating there itself. So there, what is happening? The hacker is collecting your information and he's storing it in his database, and he may be using that to hack your account. So therefore, you need to check whether that URL contains HTTPS, and every time, see, when you Google, it will show you actually. So the Google itself will show you the actual in the right side Canara Bank website and what is its URL and its description, everything it will show. So you have to click that only particular link. Otherwise, what you can do, the best thing, you can go to Wikipedia. So when the moment you enter Canara Bank, it will show you a lot of links. At the same time, it will also show you the Wikipedia link. You go to Wikipedia link, there you can cross check. So what is the actual website address of, what is the URL of Canara Bank? From there you can navigate to the bank, in case if you don't know, isn't it? So for that purpose, whenever you create any login page, you have to design the test cases such that you will test for all the possibilities, isn't it? See, the hackers will assume always that in the first attempt itself, the user is going to enter valid username and the valid password. Okay, in case if you have any doubt about the particular URL of any particular portal, you try to enter invalid values. So then also if it is opening, then you understand it is a fake web page. You should be very cautious, especially when you are dealing with transactions. Always you make sure that in whichever the portal you want to do transactions, you know the actual URL. You know the actual URL, and that must be HTTPS. Otherwise, you are not supposed to do any transaction in such portals. Students, anything you want to ask about the test card? Hello? Hello, reply at least. Any doubts in test card?
No, sir.
Test automation. Can you tell me 1 or 2 points about test automation, students? What you know about test automation? Is there anyone who has already worked 1 or 2 years or 6 months and then joined MCA? Is there anyone like that in your section, students? Hello? Or is there anyone who has learned JUnit or Selenium? Okay, first let us discuss what is test automation. See, test automation is nothing but a process of automating some of the tasks of software testing. So what, okay, let us see what are all the things that can be automated. Say for example, unit testing can be automated. Similarly, integration testing, then system testing, even the acceptance testing, all these things can be automated. Plus test report generation, that also can be automated. Now, see, when you do testing, what is important? So we have to enter the test data. That is only very, very important. So that is where the test automation comes into the picture. Have you heard about QTP? Students? It's a product of HP, Quick Test Protocol, QTP. So until recent years, it was very, very popular, Quick Test Protocol, which is used for performing functional testing. So functional testing means like you will be having the GUI, you pass input and you test the application. So that is called functionality testing or functional testing, which is also called as user acceptance test. Even to perform user acceptance test, the same procedure is used. There what we do, first we will create the test data and we save that test data in the form of an Excel file or in the form of an XML file. From there, the test automation toolkit or the tool, whatever you are using to automate the testing, that tool should pick test data from the Excel file or from the XML file. Then it automatically on your behalf, it will only feed that input to the application. Then it will test the application. After testing the application, it will also generate the test report automatically. Like say for example, test case 1 pass or fail, test case 2 pass or fail, what is the status, like that. So it will give you the end report. Okay, this is called as test automation. Then example tools for test automation is QTP, Quick Test Protocol, then JUnit. So it's a Java, one of the frameworks in Java. By using JUnit, you can perform, see, you can see here, an automated test framework. Example, JUnit is a system that makes it easy to write executable tests and submit a set of tests for execution. That means when you write the script using JUnit and JavaScript, if you write the code using JUnit, then it can take input from the file and it can feed that input to the application and test your application by running the set of test cases, and automatically it can run it can generate a test report. Okay, now I'll give you example for test report generation. What are the tools available for automatically generating the test report? So one such thing is TestNG. TestNG is a framework under Java. It's a framework under Java which can be used to automatically generate the test report. Okay, now let us assume, say you have an automation tool to run the test cases, but you don't have the mechanism to prepare the report. In such case, how to observe which is pass, which is fail? So if that is the case, you have to scroll that console. In that console, like say for example, you are running 100 test cases, then it becomes very difficult for you to scroll up and see what was the result of test case 1, what was the result of test case 2. So because of that complexity, we use test report generation tools like TestNG. It will just not only generate the test report, it will give you the statistics in the form of charts and pictures. Say for example, it will prepare a pie chart indicating, say for example, the green color indicates test cases that are pass and the red color indicates within the pie chart are the test cases that are failed. Say for example, 75% green and 25% red. That means 75% of the test cases are fail. Sorry, are passed. 75% of the test cases are passed, and remaining 25% is failed. So students, we should know what is test automation. It is nothing but automating some of the procedures of software testing. Then apart from that, as part of testing tools, there are some of the tools which can be used to review the code. There are software tools available using which you can review the code. Say for example, you have written very lengthy code. It will give you the suggestion. The code can be optimized, and it will give you the line numbers where the code can be optimized. That suggestions also will be given by using suitable test review code review tools. And problems with the test first development. Programmers prefer programming to testing, and sometimes they take shortcuts when writing tests. For example, they may write incomplete tests that do not check for all possible exceptions that may occur. Okay, look at here. For example, they may write incomplete tests that do not check for all possible exceptions that may occur, especially in the example of login page. Say for example, say I told so many options, isn't it? So first you don't enter anything, both username and password, then you click on OK. Then it should not open the home page, isn't it? If it is not opening the home page, then your test case is pass, because you are not entering anything. Then you enter username and you leave the password blank, then you will click on OK. Then also it should not open the home page, then your test case is pass. Like that, you have to check for all the possibilities. So if you are leaving some of the possibilities, then your test case or the test is incomplete. So always make sure that your testing is complete. So that is why, that should be done by professional testers. Some tests can be very difficult to write incrementally. For example, in a complex user interface, say complex user interface means sometimes, so especially while registering for a particular portal, some of the portals will take too many information. So if you have visited bankbazaar.com, like that portals, just I'm giving one example. So that is a very complex GUI which will take a lot of input. Okay, writing test cases for such web pages is really difficult. That is really difficult. For example, in a complex user interface, it is often difficult to write unit tests for the code that implements the display logic and workflow between the screens. So if you want to fill one form, you have to navigate through multiple screens. That means, say for example, so you have to fill say 20 to 25 fields. It's really complex. So such things are called as complex user interfaces. It is difficult to judge the completeness of a set of tests. Although you may have a lot of system tests, your test set may not provide complete coverage. See here, what is test first development? See, test first development means your GUI is not ready, but you have an idea how the GUI will be prepared, or how the GUI will be developed. You have an idea. So say for example, you are an test engineer. Let us assume you are a test engineer, and you are asked to write the test cases. Then what they'll give you the user stories and the task card. So by assuming how it will be developed, you'll start preparing the test cases. Okay, say for example, so for a very lengthy GUI, you have written 120 test cases. Then after a few, say for example, after 1 month, the GUI is prepared. Then they will send you the GUI. So this is what the GUI we have developed. So you have to test it. Then you will realize the developer has created few more elements which you have not considered, then what you're supposed to do, you have to retweak your test cases to add few more test cases so that your your test case becomes complete so that you can efficiently test that web page, isn't it? So that is one of the problems with test first development. See, initially you had prepared some of the test cases which you assumed that may be good enough. Then later, after seeing the GUI, you realized that there are few more elements created by the GUI designer or the developer which you had ignored. So now I have to add few more test cases so that it becomes complete. So that is one of the problems with test first development, but still it is okay. At least you have prepared 120 test cases without seeing the GUI. After that, say for example, you are adding few more, say 30 test cases. So that is fine. Pair programming involves programmers working in pairs, developing code together. So that, say for example, if one is writing the code, another one will be reviewing. So can I optimize the code? Okay, is that code proper? See, there is a theory, students. See, an experienced developer, if I say experienced developer, the average, say for example, experience is 5 years. A developer who is having 5 years of experience will inject one bug into the software if he writes 10 lines of code. So when an experienced developer writes 10 lines of source code, he will be adding one bug into the system. That means whenever a developer writes, say for example, 100 lines of source code, there will be minimum 10 bugs inside that. So what are those 10 bugs? If you execute the program is working fine, but still there will be bugs. So now I'll give you one example. Say when the Windows XP was released somewhere during 2000, there were 2 lakh bugs which were not fixed. There were 2 lakh bugs which are not fixed. So when I say Windows XP is an operating system, it contains lakhs of lines of code. Okay, it is not so easy to optimize the code. If you tweak somewhere some portion of the code, it may be having impact in some other module, isn't it? So like that, lot of dependencies will be there. See, when I say operating system, it will take care of memory management, CPU management, process management, then record keeping, storage management, and so on, isn't it? So it's not so easy to always to optimize the code, especially when the software becomes more and more complex. See, operating system software is always very complex system, isn't it? So that's why I told. So the theory, the research survey says that when an experienced developer is writing 10 lines of source code, he is injecting one bug into the system. Then if you assume what is the case of the trainee software engineers or the people who have newly joined to the industry, if they write 10 lines of code, obviously not less than 2 bugs they'll be injecting into the software. So that's where pair programming very much important in case of developing the quality software. It serves as an informal review process as each line of code is looked at by another one person. It encourages refactoring. Refactoring means code optimization, as the whole team can benefit from improving the system code. The same thing explained in next page also. Okay. Okay, students, that's about extreme programming. Then in Agile, 2 things are important, students. One is how to develop the project. So now that is extreme programming. Example, Visa. So extreme programming is one of the example for Agile methods. Then how to manage the project. That is very, very important. See, now we study about Scrum. Okay. See, many people will assume that Scrum is an alternative for extreme programming, which is false. See, extreme programming is for project development. Scrum is for project management. Scrum is a methodology, which is an agile technique used for project management, not for development. It's a project management technique. Agile project management. The principal responsibility of software project managers is to manage the project so that the software is delivered on time and within the planned budget for the project. See, what is the main work of the managers is tracking, tracking, and tracking. You see that all the employees are coming to the office. You see that, so they are meeting the daily deadlines, and the code is properly reviewed by the team lead. Then the build is prepared at the end of the day. So that is what the tracking means. So then what these project managers will do after tracking? So there will be one more manager called as delivery manager, who is responsible for coordinating all the teams. Say for example, there is one complex software system. Say for example, Infosys has taken up one complex project, say from one of the business client. Okay, say for example, from Flipkart, Infosys has taken one project, and so the development teams are geographically scattered. That means two teams are working in Bangalore, one team is working in Hyderabad, and another team is working in Los Angeles. So now, see, there are four teams, two in Bangalore, one in Hyderabad, and another one is Los Angeles. Say for example, in Los Angeles, they are doing software testing, and development task is taken care by Bangalore, two teams of Bangalore and one team in Hyderabad. Now this this delivery manager should every day keep track of what is the progress of two teams in Bangalore, what is the progress of a single team in Hyderabad, and what is the progress in Los Angeles testing team. See, this agile method promotes test first development. That means, so parallelly when the developers are writing the code, parallelly at the same time at Los Angeles testing team members, they will be writing the test cases, isn't it? They are getting ready to test the application by preparing that test cases and so on. Now this delivery manager should get updates from all the four teams, and every day he should keep sending mails to the client representative. So this is what is happening, this is what is happening today, we met our goal, like that. So then weekly goals will be there, daily goals. See, daily target will be there in case of Scrum, then weekly targets will be there. So first criteria is daily targets should be met, plus if there are any backlog work, if there is any pending work of yesterday, that has to be finished first, then today's task has to be completed, and prepare the build. So preparing the build means you prepare the code such that you have tested, you have done component testing, and you have you have the assurance that it is working fine. Then send that build to your team lead. Your team lead will once again verify your source code, then he will upload to the central repository. They call it as source repository. Have you heard about GitHub, Bitbucket, GitHub? Students, have you heard about GitHub? Anyone? Hello? Hello, I want the reply. Anybody heard about GitHub? GITHUB. You just go to Google after the class,
sir.
and you, what is GitHub?
It's a platform where we can store our projects and all, and we can collaborate with others.
Yeah, very good. So especially collaboration, code collaboration. I told in this example, so in Infosys, 4 teams are there. So, and the teams are geographically scattered. So at the end of the day, each team will upload their source code. That means their team lead will upload their source code. Say for example, say always between the teams there is dependency. Okay, say for example, let us assume one subsystem. Say for example, 3 modules are there. See, in Bangalore, I told 2 teams. One team is working on module 1, another team on module 2, and the third module in Hyderabad, development team is working on third module. If all the 3 modules are combined together, then only it becomes one complete subsystem, isn't it? So then how to integrate? So if they have to integrate, they have to collect the source code of all the 3 modules and it should be integrated, isn't it? So that will be taken care by technical lead. So he will, so now how to collaborate the code? That is, we need GitHub, something similar to GitHub or CSV server or Bitbucket. So these are called as the source repositories where you can store your code and it can be collaborated with other developers. So who are having the access to that particular account, so they can view the account, they can view the source code, they can modify the source code. You can set the privileges, whether they can only see the source code or they can also modify the source code. That privileges can be set. I say in that there are 2 types of accounts, private account and public account. See, the public account is free. Okay, public account is free. That means when you upload the source code, anybody inside, anybody can view your source code. Anybody can view your source code and they can download your source code also. If it is private, so they cannot see your source code. So such private accounts will be created by the companies so that they'll give that private account access to their development team. So only the development team members can access the code and they can collaborate. So all these things are part of project management. So tracking the progress, then intimating them to the client representatives and keeping them in touch, and to see that the entire project will be done on time and within the planned budget. The standard approach to project management is plan driven. Managers draw up a plan for the project showing that what should be delivered, when it should be delivered, and who will work on the development of the project deliverables. Student, here you need to understand the meaning of project deliverables. See, in case of software development lifecycle, at each stage there is a deliverable. See, when you follow agile methodology, first step is requirements, their user story. There is nothing like SRS document, just like how we do in waterfall model. Here, that user scenarios will be considered as the requirements document. So that is one deliverable. In design phase, so they'll develop system architecture and few more simple diagrams. Okay, that is design document. That's called design document. That is also a deliverable. Then in development, end of the development, the deliverable is source code. Then after testing, the endpoint is test report. That is called deliverable. And another name for all these things is software artifacts. Once again, I repeat the term, technical term, software artifacts. So what are software artifacts? Requirements document, design document, source code, test report, user manual, and if at all, if there is any other documentation that you have prepared with respect to project. So all those things are called as software artifacts. Okay, keep in your mind software artifacts. Even that may be asked in interviews. So example, what are all the software artifacts that are deliverable to the delivered to the client? Then you have to say, so SRS document, design document, source code, test report, these are all the software artifacts that can be shown to the client from time to time or at the end of each stage of the development cycle. Agile project management requires a different approach which is adapted to incremental development and the practices used in agile methods. Agile project management uses a different approach. What is that approach that we are going to see in the next coming slides? So that is where the Scrum starts. Students, Scrum, I want to finish it in one shot. So I cannot do today off and tomorrow off. Better we see it tomorrow. Scrum is a methodology, agile methodology, which is used for project management. And keep in your mind, extreme programming is used for project development and Scrum is used for project management. So tomorrow we'll see what is Scrum. Students, what is your class email ID? Group mail ID? Is there any something like group mail ID? Who is the class rep? Hello? Who is the class representative for second semester?
Sir, Raman and Dakshayani, sir.
Huh?
Sir, Raman and Dakshayani, sir.
Dakshayani. Please type their email ID in the chat window.